Hey, how's it going? All right, this is a little clip from O'Mara speaking in the hearing on October 26th, and he is making the argument that Trump knew about these injuries and he's actually lying about them on the news and making an argument that they don't even exist. And this is something we had talked about in several of my videos. I know that at least two or three of them I had to have. I can't remember which one. There's so many of them, but I did find one video where I made annotations to the video. So let me show you this little clip from him, and then I'll show you the news clip that he's talking about and the one that we made back in July. So here we go.
Anyway, a media video, a police video was leaked by the media showing Mr. Zimmerman walk past a camera.
Okay, he's saying that he's setting it up, and he's talking about the video that Crump was talking about, the one where it shows George walking out, getting out of the cop car and going into the police department, and how at that time the media was suggesting that this is proof that George had no injuries at all, and Crump was furthering their argument and agreeing with them, even though he knew in advance, because the police department had shown him the pictures of the bloody head and all the blood all over his face and stuff, that we now have those pictures, but we didn't have them back then. And this is what we're talking about. So there we go.
And he uses that to say the cops are conspiring against my client. It is obvious there are no injuries on Mr. Zimmerman, and therefore they're racist, and this is a conspiracy. Words like that, and look at the video, decide for yourself.
So that's what we've been arguing all along, and I'm glad that they picked up on that, because, you know, this has really been a rub for me, and I'm sure for a lot of Georgia's supporters.
What's interesting, however, is that when we fast forward to the state's press conference, and they tell us in the press conference that Mr. Crump and Mr. Parks are in daily contact with them since their involvement in the case, that means that they were involved with them when Mr. Zimmerman's records, medical records, were disclosed to Sanford PD because they had them by March 2nd. So it would seem, since they had daily contact with the investigation, that Mr. Crump would then be aware of the records that suggested the injury to the face and the back. They were similarly aware then, because SPD have it, of the picture that took us, of the picture of Mr. Zimmerman in the police car with the blood on his nose and on his face, and also the pictures taken at Sanford PD with the blood on the back.
And that's what we were talking about, how he knew, Crump knew all along, and he was hiding that fact when he was talking to the media, telling them that and we're going to show that clip here in a second, that there was no injuries to George, even though he had seen those pictures. So he was lying, and the argument that O'Mara is making is, you know, he's an officer of the court, and he's required to make correct statements, and he can't be biased. He can't be making biased statements that are meant to cause might cause an issue with the jury. I mean, if they're listening to him and believing him as if he's stating facts.
Not to cut talking about a whole bunch of blood, but when we are looking at what Mr. Crump and his camp have done to this case, it is particularly relevant for us to look at the environment into which Mr. Zimmerman was thrown.
So that is his argument for, you know, in this case, he's saying that Trump is an issue, and he's causing a real problem. So here's the video with Crump speaking.
Well, the Martin family attorney, Benjamin Crump, says that this video blows George Zimmerman's self-defense claim out of the water. Take a look at it again. The Martin family attorney Benjamin Crump told me this video is significant because keep in mind the volunteer neighborhood watch captain claimed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin punched him in the nose, knocked him on the ground, slammed his head into the concrete. Crump says the initial police report stated that Zimmerman was bleeding from the back of the head and nose. I spoke to Crump moments ago.
So the media is suggesting that these pictures prove that there was no injuries to George, and that fact means that he's a liar, and that now his case has been completely thrown out of the water. And you could see my captions there where I'm suggesting, well, then if we actually do find the injuries, then that proves his case, right? Because if no injuries proves no case, then that would mean injuries proves case. At least that's the logic that they're making.
Video comes out. What's your reaction?
It is clear now. We have heard with our ears the 911 tapes. Now tonight, America sees with our eyes the video, and we know that that police report is a fabrication. We don't understand why the powers that be in the Sanford Police Department and the state attorney's office have conspired to try to sweep the murder of Trayvon Martin under the rug.
Is there a cover-up?
Absolutely. See, we know this here, that there absolutely was some misleading the public when they said his nose was broke and there was blood on the back of his head. There's no blood on his clothes.
So, this is the media was pumping it up back then, and they could do that because the evidence was under seal. We weren't able to find out the information unless it got leaked. And the police, somebody took a handheld video with their phone of the actual video that we see. So somebody in the police department had a handheld camera where they were able to take a video of an existing video. They were from a monitor, so they're actually stealing the information and making it public. But the quality of that recording was so poor that it made it look like George didn't really have injuries, when in reality we see the pictures now, we know that he had the injuries. And this is just more evidence that the media was complicit in all this, and that they are responsible to George for his livelihood for the rest of his life and everything else that he'll ever need, because they're the ones that caused this to become a racial issue, number one. They also caused it to become an issue that put George in danger for his life. It would have not happened. Normal cases don't happen like that. It's just happened to be that the media pumped this case up so big and created such a big stir. And of course they had the great organizer Obama helping them organize the marches and figure out how to get all these people to come out and protest, even though they didn't even know what they were arguing for. They didn't know the case, so everything that they were saying was based on a lie. They didn't realize.
Since his involvement in March, they have traveled the countryside, traveled the nation, the Martin family, and Mr. Crump and Miss Jackson, and again, sort of their entourage. And they have pitched this very same story across America, that Mr. Zimmerman is a racist murderer. Those are his words, not mine. To argue that there should be some justice. Well, I'm very, very aware of this case.
This is a major blow to Crump, because now finally somebody officially is bringing up his involvement, and I'm glad to hear it and to see it. It's wonderful, because all along he's just been out there unbridled, and the media has been happily complicit. They've just loved it. In fact, it's almost like they were seeking him out, and to find somebody with Esquire attached to their name to come up here and say that George is a racist murderer, a racist murderer with a legal permit to carry a gun. This is what they really needed, and this is awesome. Not only a racist murderer with a permit to carry a gun, but a white racist murderer. Awesome. It's just amazing that this is their typical form of operation. We're so used to it now.
The facts of the case and how justice is going to be had in this case. But here's the problem. Today's Sentinel, tell how long I've lived here, it used to be the Sentinel Star. Today's Sentinel, today, after everything that the state seems to think that I've accomplished, and we'll talk about the efficacy of what I've done as far as the people who've actually seen the website, but today, 72% of the people believe George Zimmerman cannot get a fair trial. What should that percentage be? 50-50?
So he's pointing out that, you know, in a poll, 72% of the people don't think George is going to get a fair trial because of the publicity, the negative and false publicity against him. And I would say that is, you know, just because the few people that think he's going to get a fair trial probably think he's guilty, and they don't really, they're like, of course he's going to get a fair trial. He, you know, whatever trial he gets will be fair because he doesn't deserve a trial. So, you know, and the rest, everybody else is like, yeah, all, you know, I know he's not guilty, but, or he's probably not guilty, but that's just too bad for him. You know, it's sad, and this is a major point. This is a sticking point with me. This is why I got so involved in this case. It's not necessarily that it's George. He just represents the average American. It's everyone. You know, if there's any injustice to anyone in the world, it's an injustice to everyone. That's why it's so important that we find these kind of injustices and do everything we can to correct them. Anyhow, good talking to you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.